All right, let's take you now to a week that was politically in South Africa. And our senior politics reporter here at Newzroom Afrika, Ziyanda Ngcobo, joins us in studio. Good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on. It's a week where I suppose we could have seen the real feelings of the EFF leader Julius Malema about the departure of Floyd Shivambu come to the fore, and fight talk certainly coming forward there strongly, and we are seeing, I suppose, actions that are commensurate to that from the ground forces in Gauteng gathering a call to all the leaders who did not come in support of the party, but now also taking this directly to KwaZulu-Natal, where the EFF would have been bleeding quite a lot. What do you make of those movements?
I think what we mustn't forget is how interesting the dynamics and the existence of the MK party is not only now affecting the ANC, but other smaller political parties, and that mustn't be lost on us in terms of what this new organization means on the political landscape. Because initially it seemed as though by and large it was mainly in KwaZulu-Natal where there was the most impact, but no one saw it coming insofar as having the deputy president of the EFF resigning and jumping onto the bandwagon of the Umkhonto we Sizwe party. And yes, you're right, the week has been emotionally charged, if I could put it that way, with Julius Malema, who initially last Thursday, there seemed to be some kind of a gentleman's agreement in terms of how they'd conduct themselves and how they both agreed on the interpretation of this resignation. On Monday evening, Julius Malema was singing a completely different tune.
Yeah.
I went to the house of the deputy president, former deputy president of the EFF, and I said, I chose to come to your house after you wrote me a letter, because I wanted you to have a home ground advantage. 2, you said to me in the letter, you did not renew your membership, which means I'm not your president, you're not a member. So for those 2 reasons, you have no reason to be scared to tell me anything that I've done to you. And I turned, looked at him and I said, what did I do to you, Floyd? He said, nothing. It's not about anything. It's a political decision.
That, of course, got a response a little bit later on in the week from Floyd Shivambu himself saying, look, it's not a personal thing. It's about defending the revolution. We'll come to that in a moment. But what we heard there was a Julius Malema who's saying literally anything that has got the footprint or the imprint of Floyd Shivambu is going to be wiped out of the organization. He's taking over some of those responsibilities himself. Do you expect that even the Progressive Caucus in Parliament is going to take a different tone now? Because initially it was led by Floyd himself. I suppose Julius is now going to take that responsibility to be the representative of EFF in that formation.
Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens to the provincial Progressive Caucus, I beg your pardon, insofar as the relationships and the manner in which you know, each party conducts themselves, given how there's a sense, Thabo, that now what MK party is doing is trying to almost consolidate all these small political parties. If you listened to what former President Jacob Zuma and Floyd Shivambu were saying in their MK party briefing yesterday, they keep talking about uniting the progressive forces and not having all these small political parties, you know, fragment basically the vote of the oppressed people, as they put it. But it's very interesting and important to note the tone of Julius Malema on Monday. This forum that he held in Gauteng on Monday was after the Sunday papers went to town about the reasons or possible reasons that Floyd Shivambu left the EFF, talking about how he's been conducting himself like a dictator, that he's scuppered the EFF's possible gaining of positions in the government of national unity, and how he actually was having separate negotiations with President Cyril Ramaphosa. So in a way, the way in which Julius Malema came out and even how they were deliberate and telling us their credentials of the gathering was meant to be a show of force.
The GTU shall fall under the office of the president, and all powers that belong to the deputy president will go into the office of the president. and everything else that looks like the former deputy president shall be dismantled in the EFF and then gotten rid of with immediate effect. The GTU and all those who served in the GTU under the deputy president are dissolved. You want to deploy anyone into the government on behalf of the EFF, you shall report to the office of the president. We are taking charge of our organization now. We are tired of entrusting in the hands of wrong people. We have been betrayed for too long. We have been sold out for too long. We have been trusting for too long. We need to take it into our hands and run it ourselves.
So that was Julius Malema on Monday. Fire, attacking pretty much anything and anyone, and really going against the tone that they had said they would, the road that they wouldn't go down. Of course, at the weekend, Floyd Shivambu had said on his Twitter that this is the most sound and solid decision ever, and that seems to have irked the EFF supporters. Come Thursday, yesterday, when the MK party held its first briefing since post-election season, really, and the first time that we got to see Floyd Shivambu and EFF and MK party regalia, excuse me, we got to hear a little bit about why Floyd Shivambu decided to leave the EFF, and for him, he still maintains that this was a personal political decision.
You know, some people will say, you are betraying me. Where does that enter? And you don't even once suggest that I'm betraying the revolution. I will never betray the revolution. Because we're not in the business of trying to please each other's egos here. We're in the business of building a revolutionary movement that is going to emancipate the black majority and Africans in particular, and we're unapologetic about that.
That would have been a very important gathering in itself, politically, in the life of the MK party, because the high command structure of the party was announced there, Floyd Shivambu as the national organizer, and a list of others that would have made that presentation. But here, also coming out of that, is that former President Jacob Zuma still pretty much deploys and redeploys and fires as much as he wants in the party, and it's set to continue. From the statement that we are hearing, there will be no conference. There will be a policy conference at some time, depending on the work that Floyd is certainly going to be doing in the party. But for the first time now, there is some kind of structure. What is this structure going to do?
Indeed, and you know, the former president lashing out at us as journalists for not acknowledging, he says, the fact that they've made such huge strides for a party that's only been in existence for a couple of months. And it's an 8-member high command structure, but it has extended members of no more than 45 people. And in that structure, you have Dr. John Tlhophe, who's the deputy president. You have someone like Nathi Nhleko, who the former police minister, who's now the national chairperson. You have Dr. Sfiso Maseko, who was once an acting CEO at Chris Baragwanath Hospital as the Secretary General, and Floyd Shivambu, of course, national organizer, which will be looking at issues of policy, building up the structures such as the leagues, Women's League, Youth League, and student movement. And this structure will essentially be in charge of ensuring that the organization is functioning ahead of the 2026 and 2029 elections. Now, Zuma was saying that for them, they believe conferences in their current form, as is done in other organizations, is fake. He says they've been contaminated by vote buying, and so for now, they won't be having any conferences.
Part of the reason we have said we don't need conferences for now, as we are establishing our party, because conferences have become fake. People use money, they buy people to vote for them and do everything. No, we are saying that is not going to happen to Mkhonto Wesizwe.
Well, Ziyanda, in your sit down with the former president just ahead of the May 29 elections, you asked him about this dilemma of I will remain a member of the ANC until I die, you know, type of thing. And he spoke about political something. You asked it again during this particular briefing. Are you clearer now what the political something is?
Not quite, Tabo. But what I can tell you is that, you know, I think some parts of the briefing felt like a political lecture of some sort, because he was talking about how when he went about forming the Umkhonto weSizwe party, he likened it to what it was like in 1961 when Umkhonto weSizwe was formed, when the ANC was banned, and how, you know, some members had to go underground to be able to form this particular aspect of the movement. And he says it's the same thing that he did here with this political party. He was asked about the not appealing that 21-day expulsion. Not a very clear answer, but suffice to say that he believes that he is still picking up the mantle or continuing the historical mission by the liberation movement, because they believe that this current leadership is actually swaying the movement in the wrong direction. You know, he keeps calling this and characterizing this as the ANC of Ramaphosa, and so it's very specific and attributed to a particular man. And so for him, he still maintains he'll die in the ANC, and I think his exact words were out of respect for the ancestors of the ANC.
When you look at it, I mean, I'm not getting overtures from Umkhonto weSizwe party that they are taking any particular fight to the EFF, even though we are hearing the opposite when it comes to the EFF. The ANC seemingly sitting this one out a little bit with a little bit of this destruction that is going on with the movement of Floyd Shivambu, and we don't know who else is going to be making movements in the EFF. What do you see going forward? Is there a collaboration that will happen between MK Party and EFF against the ANC at some point?
Well, nothing is impossible in South African politics at this stage. But given the tone of Julius Malema and how Floyd has been responding, it doesn't look likely for now. And this is why I'm saying going forward, it will be very interesting to see how this messaging of the MK party about continuing a revolution, consolidating, because that's where, for me, the messaging was lying, to say they are consolidating all progressive forces, almost to say, let's collapse all these small political parties, UDM, EFF, and all these black parties, and let's build one big, mean machine, because they made reference to the DA and talking about how that organization is very clear about, you know, executing the mandate of a white minority, as they put it. So they believe that if they get this Umkhonto weSizwe party right at some stage, as Zuma said, something won't feel right if you're not a part of Umkhonto weSizwe. So in terms of a consolidation, I don't see that just happening just yet. But what was also interesting from the former president was how he said he's going underground again, and that there may be many more people that are still going to join the high command structure, but they're waiting for them to resign where they are. From which political party they'll be coming from, we just don't know yet.
Mapoloba, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on, our senior politics reporter there.